What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the world according to Briggs. I guess since we have protests going all over the country, we might as well talk about a city that's seen more than their fair share. Seattle, Washington. Seattle is the true home of Starbucks, grunge music, and the gum wall. Yeah, it's a thing. People have been putting their gum on this wall for a couple decades now, and tourists go by and take selfies near it. It's weird. It's really an alley now at this point, too, because they're doing both sides of the wall. It's weird. I don't understand it, but it's there. The Emerald City, the Queen City, Jet City, Rain City, the City of Goodwill. Seattle has far more nicknames than it needs. Seattle is also the United States' most northwestern major city. They do have a few smaller cities like Everett and Bellingham, but Seattle is like the last metro area before you hit Canada. If you can't find it on a map, find Canada, go all the way to the left, and then go down about an inch. You'll find it there. Besides having too many nicknames, Seattle is one of the West Coast's largest tech and shipping cities. Seattle's a great city. I visit it often. I can honestly say that it's one of my top 5 cities to visit. I always have a good time there. I don't know what it is. It's always a good time. But Seattle's not for everyone. This list is about some of the things you should know about if you're thinking about relocating. Some of the things on this list you may think are not a big deal. Some people may find it a big deal. I'm not telling you not to move there. I'm just letting you know there's some things you should be aware of. All right, let's see what Seattle's all about. Number 10, protesters. That's right, protesters aren't just a Portland thing anymore. They've spread to every corner of the globe, and they've spread it a little thick in Seattle. In the last 50 years, they've noticed that cities that have a well-educated population tend to be politically active cities. And on the other side of the education spectrum, less educated people tend to not give a crap about politics and sort of go with the flow. Now, before you do, stop typing. There is a difference between educated and intelligent. Some of the dumbest people I know have 4-year degrees. You can't be that smart if you're going $30,000 in debt for an art history degree, right? So here's the piece of advice if you move to Seattle. If you see a crowd of book-reading troublemakers in Seattle, go the other way. Or join in. Or plan on being stuck in traffic for a while they do their thing. And before you comment, I believe in protests. I may not believe in each and every cause, but I believe in the lawful right to protest. Rioters are not protesters. Big difference. So again, stop typing. Number 9. Nobody's from Seattle anymore. Now, I mentioned this 3 years ago about Seattle, and it's gotten worse since then. I feel like nobody's born and raised in Seattle anymore. Obviously, there are some, okay? I'm not saying nobody, but the handful I know are definitely not from Seattle. They're all transplants, and that's a theme throughout the city. Most of the natives have gone. Seattle's had a booming economy for some time now. Well, pretty much since computers became a thing. Of course, this has led to higher paying jobs for skilled workers, and as they come in, home prices and rent prices go up, chasing the locals away. It's the same thing that went down in the San Francisco Bay Area with Silicon Valley and all that stuff. The locals that are still in Seattle may shoot you some attitude if you explain how you just moved for some fancy tech job or something like that. You might want to keep that one to yourself. I tell people that about Portland too. Keep it to yourself for a while. Number 8. Summers are gone before you know it. If you've ever lived in San Diego or Los Angeles, you know that summers last about 9 months. And you tend to not appreciate it because it's there all the time. Seattle's summer is from August 1st to September 20th or thereabouts, and they appreciate it like a starving man that just found a muffin top and a $12 coffee. They go after summer hard, squeezing out every ounce of summer they can. And when September 20th roll around, they start searching for muffin crumbs. I know the weather report says it's going to be cold and cloudy next week, but I think that's BS. It's going to be sunny and warm. I know it. They go insane. September is when a lot of daydreaming and lying to yourself starts. The Farmer's Almanac said it's going to be sunny this winter in Seattle. It's going to be like 80 degrees every day. A psychic told me. Read my tea leaves. Never is. It's always cloudy and rainy every winter in Seattle. I hope you're okay with that before you move there. Number 7, housing prices. Both buying and renting in Seattle is going to be expensive. Prices have calmed a little in the last year or so, but they're still outpacing the rest of the country. In Seattle, the real estate prices are 80% higher than the Washington average, and about 120% higher than the national average. Rental prices about 20% higher than Washington, but it's about 75% higher than the national average for rent in Seattle. So if you're thinking about picking up a mortgage in Seattle, you better have a solid job. I've mentioned this guy before, but I know this lawyer who, right out of law school, he got his first job at a law firm, and he wasn't setting the world on fire with income, but he lived in a van for over a year because of the rent prices and crushing student loans that he had out. Yeah, it was rough. The good news is he's doing a lot better. He's been out of the van for some time. He actually owns a home in the Green Lake neighborhood in Seattle. Number 6, crime. Imagine that, a big city that has some crime. Weird, that almost never happens. Never seen that before. Anyway, Seattle has some crime. Area Vibes actually gives them an F when it comes to crime. Seattle's crime rate is 126% higher than the national average. That's bad, but it's not terrible. I mean, there's places like East St. Louis in this country that have a crime rate that's like 270% higher than the national average. So 126 is bad, but it's not like a frickin' war zone. They have some bad neighborhoods that you might want to avoid, or, a lot of crimes are going on there, but they still have some really nice neighborhoods in Seattle where things like leaving your Christmas lights up after February 1st is considered a major crime. So the place isn't horrible. They just have some crime in different areas. Know where those areas are before you move there. Number 5, chickens. If you move to the Emerald City, don't be surprised if you hear a rooster in the morning. It's a big city, and you'll hear roosters. Seattle city dwellers have chickens. I know that's not a big deal, and it probably isn't a reason not to move there. It's just something you should know about. It's estimated that 2,500 homes have chicken coops in Seattle. There's so many that they actually have more than one professional chicken coop builder in Seattle. Here's the real warning. If you meet anyone who does keep this chicken thing, try not to bring it up. Unless, of course, you want to spend an hour of your day hearing all about the benefits of having farm-fresh eggs and chickens in your backyard and all that weirdness. It was worse. In 2015, they actually started limiting the amount of chickens people could have in the city. Yeah, that one's just weird. I've always thought it was weird. They're really into chickens here. Number 4, cruise season. This one isn't terrible, but it's really something you should know about. I mean, it's really not a thing that make or break moving there, but it is an annoyance once you do live there. Cruise seasons are rough on the citizens. The city and the businesses love them, the people not so much. Cruises leave Seattle for Alaska from mid-April until mid-September normally. And the whole downtown area is overrun with tourists. I mean, you have your normal tourists, and then a couple days a week while they're waiting to board and then get off the ships, it just gets nuts. Especially the traffic, the hotel, the restaurants, the whole harbor area just blows. The Port of Seattle sees over 1 million passengers through its cruise terminals every single year. It was expected to see 1.2 million in 2020. They won't be seeing any of them, obviously, with COVID-19. So really, I'm saying this part of Seattle sucks. This year, you could drive right down Alaska Way, which is the road that runs right along the harbor, and not see many tourists at all. It should be wide open. You just drive on down there. Number 3, it's uphill both ways. If you plan on walking around or biking to work in downtown Seattle, be prepared to break a sweat. Seattle's built on an extremely steep hill, which means almost wherever you go, you're likely to do some serious hill climbing. The good news is, if you work downtown, you'll have buns of steel in like a year. If your friends ask you if you've been on Nutrisystem or keto, you'll get to answer, no, I can't afford car insurance because I got an art history degree, and now I have to ride a bike to work at Starbucks. So the walkability score here is really low. Believe it or not, that's a big thing with a lot of people. With crime, is it dog friendly, traffic, things they search when they're thinking about relocating, walkability is one of the top ones. Number 2, it isn't as expensive as San Francisco yet. The other big tech city on the West Coast is San Francisco, and as far as rent and home prices, Seattle isn't as bad, but it's catching up. Outside the housing prices, the cost of living is 78% higher than the national average in Seattle. Washington's general sales tax is about 28% higher than the national average. All this adds up. The good news is there's no state income tax, so that's a plus. In San Francisco, though, it's not uncommon to see 4 people making over $60,000 a year having to share a 2-bedroom apartment. Seattle's not as bad. A 2-bedroom apartment will have 3 people, one in each room and the other living on the couch, who has an OnlyFans page as a side hustle. That's fine. You do you, Stan, but could you give us a heads up on your banana filming schedule? And number 1. the traffic blows. Seattle's traffic is closing in on Los Angeles and San Francisco as having the worst traffic on the West Coast. The freeways are too small and the train system is sad. They do have a little monorail system downtown, but compared to other cities, it's kind of weak. No, it's a lot of weak actually. They are working on some expansions, and they completed a tunnel under the city. It opened in February of 2019. They're still collecting data on it, so we'll find out how effective it is, but it looks pretty good at this point. Seattle's biggest and unfixable problem is they squeezed a city into a narrow strip of land between two bodies of water. When it was a small fishing village, it was a great place to set up shop, and I'm sure they looked around and thought, hey, there's plenty of land with an ocean view, more than enough room for growth. They probably never imagined that this would someday be a major city with 750,000 people and almost 4 million people in the metro area. Seattle is still growing, and it's estimated that they've added 150,000 residents to the city since the 2010 census. And this will cause the traffic to only get worse, I am sure. So have an Audible account and, listen to books while you're stuck in traffic in Seattle. Alright, so that is today's top 10 reasons not to move to Seattle. Seattle is a great city, and a lot of these things are, aren't going to be a big deal to a lot of you, but to some people they do matter. I hope you guys got some information out of it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.